parents also need to be prepared to sort of look at what their kids are doing, and that applies to us as parents regardless of the age of our children. You're probably aware of the publicity surrounding Mercy Ministries in the last week, which has been horrific. The suggestion or the allegation that people suffering from mental health illness have been party to a program which has not had the means by which to deal with mental health issues, psychiatric issues, eating disorders, when there's no psychiatrist on site, when the counselling is perhaps 1 hour a week, when there aren't the credentials to be able to deal with people with long-term, deep-seated emotional and psychological problems. I mean, we're dealing right now with the people that have emerged from this, and it's really, really scary. It's really, really scary.
What else are they telling you?
Well, what we're being told and what we're dealing with is people who went in hopeful of a particular solution, hopeful of a particular remedy towards long-standing problems, and coming out worse, coming out shattered, coming out completely broken, coming out with no trust ever again in another human being on this earth. Even for me to be able to establish trust with them was extremely difficult because I had to go through the hoops of identifying myself as someone who has no other agenda. And they are a wonderful bunch of people, very special people, and that's perhaps another issue, that is the good people that fall into this in so many different aspects. Sorry.
You mentioned earlier that the whole issue of controlling their thoughts and the fact that perhaps some people who've been in terrorist organisations need to be deprogrammed. Is that a case for everyone who leaves a cult, do you believe?
A lot of people leave cults on their own. I mean, it's a little bit like the drug scene. I mean, not everybody needs to go to rehab in order to give up drugs. If they did, the rehab centres would be overflowing even more than they are. But those people who leave cults without some sort of assistance often are forced back into that system later on where they need some sort of assistance. They have flashbacks of experiences which are very powerful. They find issues of relationships and intimacy difficult. So they may be cruising quite well, but our belief is that it's going to always be valuable to have some sort of a check-up, get a roadworthy after you've got out. Sort of get a feel of what they've been through and get an understanding. I mean, we have dealt with people who've been clients of ours 10, 15 years after they've actually left and done nothing between the time that they left and then suddenly picked up the pieces later.
So what can be done about these particular organisations then? I mean, I would imagine that they don't necessarily do something that's particularly illegal as such.
Look, when they're dealing with young children, you've got an issue of duty of care, which is probably far more relevant than it is with older people who are supposedly making up their own minds. If there are breaches of immigration laws and misappropriation of Centrelink payments and all that sort of stuff, those are identifiable areas. Misrepresentation, Office of Fair Trading can come in. We had a group we were dealing with, and Fair Trading, together with us, we closed them down. They were selling miracle waters for $80 a pop. Now, the water was about this much, and this was supposedly going to help individuals make their lives better. In fact, this organisation was so clever that if you put a glass of water next to a computer, you could actually download the blessing into the water with the payment of a credit card. So that was really clever. So rather than going up to Byron Bay, which was what people normally did, you took a glass of water, had to be within about 6 centimetres off the actual PC, and then you put your credit card in and you played around a little bit and you were able to download the blessing into the water, and it was all done.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And hundreds and hundreds of people paid those fees. So that's an area where people can get in, but it is an area which is very, very difficult to regulate. In relation to the Mercy Ministry issue, there are people looking at all sorts of different remedies according to the law, but it's a hard one because it's very hard to identify mind control.
You run Cult Counselling Australia, which is a non-denominational service. Do you find that when you're dealing with people that the cults will fight to keep them as you're trying to help them out, that they're fighting to keep them? And
I'm the devil.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must have one heck of a reputation.
I'm a really bad guy. And there's a couple of situations I'm involved in now, and I've actually managed to talk to the people involved. They're still in the group, and they're sort of still trying to work out whether this is just one big con, or whether it's and the devil in different clothes.
Do they see you long beard and go, look out?
Well, that actually helps, because people often think I'm a bit of a cult member myself.
You're a wizard.
That's right. So I come in and they say, well, and parents often look at me after having not met me yet, or having not seen my picture somewhere, and they'll say,
here's another one.
Are you really the sort of person we should be talking to help our kid, and so on. Yeah, but we are a non-denominational organisation, and we pride ourselves in that. The other thing is none of us, the ones working with us, have ever been involved in the cult, so we have no agenda. We've got no vendetta, and a lot of cult organisations often become a little bit culty themselves. They sort of end up, with this sort of huge mission, and we don't have that. We don't have any agenda. We argue very strongly against groups that try and use any form of denomination as a remedy. Our objective is get people back to where they were beforehand, and then let them deal with the issues that led them in the group in the first place. That's all.
Do they all depend on a charismatic leader?
I think one of the hallmarks of a cult would have to be, some sort of charismatic leader. That does not mean that you can't have a cult organisation or cult phenomena happening without a charismatic leader. Traditionally speaking, the definition of a cult involves a charismatic leader. But when we talk about Mercy Ministries or any other such organisation, there may not have been a charismatic leader happening over there, but what was happening was a process of exploitation, a process of misuse, and all sorts of other things, if in fact the allegations that are being made by these people are correct. But generally speaking, yes, you do need a charismatic leader, and that is true also about terrorist groups.
Yeah.
I mean, bin Laden is a very charismatic man, as are, his marshals.
Yeah.
And that creates a certain desire to be part of something much bigger than life.
Is it next to no chance of shutting them down as such?
I don't think we'll ever we'll never get rid of cults. We won't get rid of the road toll. We won't get rid of lots of other things that are afflicting our society. But what we can do is we can make a difference. We can make a difference in the lives of people that have actually gone through the experience. We can make a difference in the lives of the families. I mean, we work very hard to get people out of groups. We don't always succeed, but we always make a difference as far as the family is concerned. We help them with communication skills. We help them with getting closer to their kids. We help them to be parents. It's not going to go away. It's part of life. I think, ironically, since 9/11, which is really interesting, cults have really had a boost. 9/11 proved all the doomsday people that the world is coming to an end. So 9/11, in a sense, did tell us all that the world's coming to an end, and the doomsday and the soothsayers are all correct. But the other thing about 9/11 is it created a great sense of lack of certainty, lack of predictability. It created a lot of instability in the world, and cults try to pretend that they can give you that stability. They can make it all good again. So I've written a book on this issue, and I'm rewriting it again now, because post 9/11, the cult system and the cult syndrome is totally different from what it was before, and it's much more serious and something we need to be more aware of.
Absolutely, and there'll be plenty of people out there identifying with that today. Look, so lovely to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Love to speak to you again sometime.
Thank you very much.